I, Dr. Sandeep Kumar, faculty from CIE, University of Delhi, along with National Resource Center for Education, Central University of South Bihar, welcome you in the course Latest Trend in Pedagogy and Assessment. I welcome you in second session for Understanding Pedagogy in Inclusive and Non-Discriminatory Settings. In first session, you have developed a comprehensive and broad understanding about inclusion and non-discrimination along with the attitudes and values teachers need to have. I will start this session with two prevailed ideas which explain two approaches of inclusion. First idea places problem inside the child, and second idea considers system at fault and not the child. Then we will explore the question, and that is there any special pedagogy which can be labeled as inclusive? And finally, we will discuss about inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy to be adopted by teachers in their practices. Inclusion, prevailed perspectives. Before we enter in the discussion about inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy, I would like to draw your attention that there are two specific ways which develops the context of people's argument about inclusion and associated concerns. First view places problem inside the learner and therefore label them with slow learners, underachievers, dyslexic, etc. This labeling perceives child in a given framework, such as dyslexic child can or cannot do this. This limits the possibilities of developing a child in its best possible way. Teachers' expectations also goes lower for labeled children. As a result, education of such children could not take place as it should be, because they are labeled and categorized. This view also considers that such children will require extra resources because their IQ is very low, etc. If a child does not fit into one category completely, she or he is given conflicting advices which is very harmful to the child. Special pedagogy somehow restricts them to participate in general opportunities, and this way they only surrounded by the opportunities given under special pedagogical processes, which hinders their healthy developmental process. The other view considers education system responsible and not the children. Their basic idea is that we all face difficulties in learning in some way or other. It is the responsibility of a school to provide adequate learning opportunities to all students. These challenges also provide a direction for developing new and improved pedagogical spaces for learners. This view is more valued today, at least theoretically, where individual is not problematized, rather system is questioned for its practices and organizations. One of the important recommendations of this view is that space, opportunities and support are to be given to teachers to enhance and develop their pedagogy and pedagogic processes instead of becoming only special teacher for special children. Above discussion set a background or premises of understanding inclusion and non-discrimination. It is important to understand that all children do not need same kind of pedagogical support, and it is almost impossible to know the learning styles of every individual in your class, school, district, nation and so on. Diversity discussed earlier makes this task even more complicated. And as there is no specific pedagogy for diverse class, it is good and advisable to adapt child-centered pedagogy to teach learners. There are certain essentials of child-centered pedagogy such as diverse pathways to learning, collaborative learning context, needful and senseful pedagogic spaces, accommodative and adaptable pedagogic spaces, ever-evolving role of teachers and students, etc. Is there any special pedagogy which can be labeled as inclusive? Now let us understand, is there any special pedagogy which can be labeled as inclusive? For me, The term inclusive pedagogy creates a kind of discomfort. It gives a feeling like there is general pedagogy and specific pedagogy, which divides the very essence of pedagogy. It does not mean I am saying to avoid individual needs and uniqueness. Rather, I am saying categorization will create divide, which is not good for developing a non-discriminatory pedagogy. We do understand that there are multiple ways or paths of learning. Some learns through verbal communication, whereas other learns through visuals. Some are good at interpersonal, whereas others are good at intrapersonal. So it is essential to recognize the diverse pathways learner use to achieve their goals. Further, I would like to say that not only pathways are different, rather goals are also different. No doubt, rote learning will never provide enough space and opportunities to learners, because in rote learning, learners only repeat what a teacher says. By disrespecting learners' needs, their context and learning pathways, teacher may not be able to help students appropriately. It is important to know that pedagogy is a broad term which is beyond simple teaching learning strategies and includes all kind of available resources. As we are trying to understand inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy, it becomes important to address the question, is there any special kind of pedagogy we have to use to teach children with special needs and children with diversity, or regular pedagogy need to be inclusive and non-discriminatory? There are two views on it. First, children with severe or multiple disabilities who need special care and attention in their learning and developmental processes. And second, children with mild disabilities and other diverse groups who can accommodate with common pedagogical processes while maintaining their individual needs. Our discussion will focus more on second view. Why I am focusing on second view? Because it will help us to deal with more students. This will also break the stereotypes where we believe that diverse groups need special pedagogy and specific methodology. Need is to understand and create routine pedagogy as inclusive and non-discriminatory. Therefore, I don't encourage teachers for special pedagogy, rather I encourage teachers to teach all students in regular classes. Understanding pedagogy. With all the above discussion, now we are in position to understand the inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy. Teachers need to adapt. We will find diverse children groups in our classes, diverse in their interest, attitude, aptitude, socio-economic background, etc. We have discussed that there is no special pedagogy, but children must be at the center of the pedagogy used by the teachers. Such child-centered pedagogy will respect the learner's needs and requirements while considering their diversity in mind. Now, we will be discussing certain points to provide a comprehensive framework to inclusive, which is not special, and non-discriminatory pedagogy. These are only suggestive ideas. One may add to as many as they want to make it more comprehensive. Some of these ideas are like this: significant and adequate learning opportunities, diverse learning ways, collaborative learning spaces, striking and available learning spaces, engrossment with the community, creating inclusive and non-discriminatory culture, visualizing parents' role in education, peer collaboration, school-based continuous professional development. Let us take each of these points and elaborate further. Significant and adequate learning opportunities. Significant and adequate learning opportunities must be given to learners. These opportunities must help learner to learn meaningfully. What meaningful means here? It means making a linkages and connection between what is taught, how is taught, and authentication of learning in everyday life. Learners must connect their learning in their daily life problem solving. Such adequate environment can be provided individually and in groups. Teacher must develop his or her logical argument based on learner's prior knowledge and structure of knowledge she or he carries in memory. For this, a teacher must be familiar with learners, their needs and their requirements. The previous context of learner's life provides a strong base for learning which is more meaningful for learner. The significant and adequate spaces need to be generated by teachers according to the context. Try to incorporate learners' contextual examples in your teaching. This will develop a feeling of ownership in students for their learning. Nothing best can be happen if you can make a learner realize that the knowledge they are dealing with is their own creation and for their own use only. It is also to keep in mind that whatever students learn in class, there should be some scope for its practice or experience or observation in their life. The domain of their meaningfulness will automatically increase if we can provide them space to make their learning interdisciplinary. Diverse learning ways. As discussed earlier, our classes are full of diversities and therefore there will be diverse learning ways. So, need is to be familiar about diverse teaching learning strategies so that learning can be facilitated to the best possible extent according to the learner's need and capabilities. Important is to highlight that there is no so-called the strategy, rather a teacher with his or her past experiences has to generate new strategies which will work more effectively and efficiently in their context. These strategies for handling the situations will come from teachers' small t theories. This will also make them reflective. To become reflective about knowing diverse learning ways and facilitating accordingly, teachers may think and reflect about the following. What are the comfortable learning ways of children? Where children face difficulties in understanding the concepts? Why some are moving ahead whereas others are not? Ways which facilitates learner to understand concept comprehensively. How can I teach best with available limited resources? What makes learner motivated? How can I make a meaningful connect between classroom discussions and learners' cultural practices? How to make a bridge between school and home? These reflective explorations will provide a sense of understanding to teachers about the opportunities need to be given to students, such as engaging, exploring, elaborating, participating, evaluating, etc. Opportunities will also depend on the kind of concepts expected to be learned and the way learner would be able to understand them better. Providing such free spaces and democratic environment develop abilities in children to do problem solving on their own. They'll become researcher to explore various issues, challenges and possibilities. Such pedagogy will also provide learners with opportunities and spaces for diverse ways of knowing, whether it is visual, auditory, display, etc. It is the fact that children perceive surroundings different from each other. Therefore, their ways of engaging and knowing is also different. This perception and expression of concept depends upon the socio-cultural background. These diverse ways of knowing help learners to make relationship between various concepts. These relations create basis of better and quality learning for learners. It also allows diverse ways of expressing learning. It may be oral, written, poster, pictures, etc. These ways of expression are important for child throughout their educational journey. It is teachers' responsibility to identify the learner's preferred way and provide them enough spaces and opportunities for expression. Collaborative learning spaces. Collaborative learning is one of the best learning ways to be used to make pedagogy inclusive. Every child performs his or her role in collaborative tasks. Sometimes collaborative tasks questioned about its ability to make sure of learning of every individual. But actually, it is not a problem of collaborative working. Rather, it is a problem of its implementation. Better use of collaborative learning surely provides better learning spaces to learners. Collaborative learning spaces help children to understand the values of group work. Learners learn to respect each other's ideas, which gradually become an attitude to work in groups and respecting others' existence with positivity. Collaborative working also develops tolerance in child because they have to learn to listen and wait for their turn to speak and act. An important question to ask here is how to form groups for efficient and fruitful execution of collaborative working. This grouping becomes more important in a diverse classroom. It is important to make such groups where each group represents the diversity. Making groups based on same ability or same gender or same socio-cultural background will not be very effective in inclusive class. There is possibility that you have students with disability in your class. So, grouping class for collaborative tasks is very crucial, where maintaining diversity among the working groups is the relatively best way to form the groups. Collaborative work will not become effective in itself. Rather, teachers have to make environment conducive, where every learner and his or her capabilities are valued. Planning group work need careful attention to devise the meaningful activity for all. Not only this, teacher has to be available with student for timely and required support throughout the group task, and therefore teacher has to learn the basic skills for organizing a significant collaborative task. Teacher also has to make sure that role of learner keep changing in a group. For example, if a student is made leader of a group, the next time this role is to be given to another member. Therefore, it is necessary to make working rules for all the learners and the groups, so that maximum exposure can be given to learners. It is also important to make a task relatively difficult and complex, which is beyond the capabilities of an individual. Any task cannot be collaborative task unless it is designed according to the collective need of the group, which is governed by the principle of what a teacher wants their learner to be engaged with. Teacher must make sure that tasks should be such where interdependency is necessary requirement for successfully completion of the task. For example, each member of the group must have some kind of knowledge and resources to complete the task. Their collaboration with all the resources will help them to achieve the goal. Striking and available learning spaces. No doubt, school and classroom can be very important and significant center for children's learning and development if used and organized appropriately. It must be welcoming to all students to provide equal opportunity for exploring and learning. For this, teachers have to make an effort to develop striking environment so that students may attract towards it. Such spaces should be available for all. We have to keep in mind that these spaces are not the final destination. Rather, these are the ways or means to achieve the goal based on inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy. Such striking available spaces will include physical spaces, discussion corners, democratic walls, reading spaces, positive and optimistic spaces. Physical space means space where children can move around freely as per their needs. Availability also inherits its accessibility. There should not be any physical and social barriers in front of students to approach a place within school premises. Discussion corners. School must have special discussion corners where learners can discuss about specific themes. Such discussion corners should be live in school so that students can discuss about their ideas, views, perceptions, etc. about any phenomena. These corners can also be developed in classrooms where self-learning can be motivated. Every corner must be equipped with resources so that learners can make use of required resources. These discussion corners can also be used to discuss ideas and concepts not given in their textbooks. Such practices will enhance and broaden learners' ideas about the discussed concepts. Democratic walls. Democratic practices are important for any educational institution. There are various ways to execute democratic values in school. One of them is allowing learners to express their feelings without fear. One of the ways of exercising such democratic values is developing democratic walls, where students can write their feelings, ideas, and concerns freely. Such corners will be used without any kind of discrimination. Reading spaces. Though classes are there which provide space for reading, but exclusive spaces must be provided for reading. For this, reading corners can be developed so that students can devote special time for reading. This time will be given to all equally. Resources available in such reading corners will be shared democratically. Books, articles, and reading material can be placed here for students' easy access. Positive and optimistic spaces. The time we are living in is with full of pessimism. We have developed tendencies to criticize everything. So, to develop a positive attitude in learner, positive and optimistic spaces need to be created. I believe such positivity and optimism will create an environment for inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogic practices. Engrossment with community. To develop an effective and significant inclusive pedagogy, vision needs to be broadened, and for this we have to move outside educational institutions and reach to community for gaining their support. There will be many in community who would like to contribute in education willingly because they want better education for their children. Such engrossment with community is essential, where we need to develop socially inclusive pedagogy. How community can support is an important question to be dealt with. The community can support in many ways, such as learning enhancement, local visits, and interaction with community people and practices can be supported by community. If possible, transport facilities can be provided by community, particularly for children with disability. Such initiatives and collaboration will facilitate developing a positive attitude towards available diversity in society, creating inclusive and non-discriminatory culture. Pedagogic practices alone may not be sufficient to make or develop an inclusive and non-discriminatory culture. Similarly, putting everyone in mainstream will also not make a space inclusive. To develop a non-discriminatory culture, an institution has to work as a whole unit which includes curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, community, policies, etc. So, the idea of developing an inclusive and non-discriminatory system, working culture, thinking patterns, behavioral action, etc. need to be changed based on inclusive philosophy. To make any educational institution inclusive and non-discriminatory, following can be considered important and essential. Available diversity should be seen as positive resource for the betterment of an institution. Teamwork should be promoted among different agencies within institution. Cooperative and dialogic process to be used for understanding concerns and issues and searching of possibilities for solution. Having positive and optimistic attitude. Shared leadership for better governance. Not only following inclusive practices, rather believing inclusion and non-discrimination. Continuous reflection on action for being critical about the needs and challenges of the system. Understanding diversity from various dimensions. believing and doing inclusion and non-discrimination as a larger value, consistency in stock taking of children's learning and adopt required pedagogies, special budget for development of resources to improve pedagogies, visualizing parents' role in education. Parents are the best people who know best about their child. Students' interest, abilities, requirements, temperament are best known by their parents. Nothing can happen better if a good and workable model can be developed where teachers and parents can join their hand to develop better learning spaces for children. Wherever teacher faces difficulties in understanding child, parental involvement can take care of such situations. This collaboration surely help to develop a learning community in education institution as well as in society. Direct interaction, family visits, routine diary, school websites and blogs, special meetings with parents, etc. are some of the ways where this collaboration can be explored and established. You can think of many more such collaborations. Peer collaboration. Peer collaboration can be taken as a tool for developing inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy. Taking help from students to facilitate their peer group would be a good way for developing commitment toward respecting and valuing others' existence. This commitment automatically establish non-discriminatory spaces in learning institutions. Learners' mutual healthy relationships will make them independent and collaborative. School-based continuous professional development. Developing inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy is only possible when teachers are engaged with their continuous professional development, which is school-based. Why school-based? Because pedagogical issues are ever-changing and one-time interaction during summer vacation does not provide much support. So, if we have school-based continuous professional development program, it will become routine of teachers' life and they will be able to handle problems and challenges effectively. This strength will also help them to develop their own mechanisms to establish inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogic processes. Collaborating Colleague Scheme, which is also known as CCS, can be taken as an example. Now, while concluding my discussion about inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy, I would like to say teaching in regular class and catering the need of every child with due respect is the baseline of inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy, where we have to move beyond so-called special skills for teaching of special children. The term special categorizes learner into various categories and at larger level does not help them much. Teaching is a dynamic process which is ever evolving. Therefore, certain fixed skills and knowledge will not help us much. This ever-changing process can be handled only by reflective practitioners who can question their own practices. It is important to understand that pedagogical processes alone will not help. Rather, curriculum, content, course structure, evaluation processes, etc. have to be inclusive and non-discriminatory. Collaboration among educational institutions and community will surely provide more space and opportunities to learner for learning and developing themselves. We need to work on the idea that all learners have certain common needs which are unique to them as individuals. It is important to keep child-centered pedagogy in focus while working in inclusive and non-discriminatory settings. Such pedagogy must be authentic and meaningful for the learners. A strong intervention is needed in pre-service teacher education program for understanding pedagogy beyond compartmentalization of general versus special. In-service program also need to be revisited to develop better and self-sustainable professional development programs, particularly school-based. And last but not the least, we have to leave deficit model and move towards growth model in all sphere of education, which is based on trust and optimistic practices. With this, I would like to thank you all for listening and engaging in the process of understanding inclusive and non-discriminatory pedagogy. Thank you very much.